The Chinese Civil War began with the uprising of the Nationalist Party in 1911. Under the influence of Sun Yat-sen, a Chinese philosopher, the provincial government defeated the Qing dynasty during the Xinhai Revolution. This is a highly significant event in Chinese history, as the Qing dynasty ruled China for over 400 years. The events of the Xinhai Revolution greatly weakened China, even with the leadership of Sun Yat-sen. The provincial government, later renamed the Nationalist Party, began to collapse during the events of the Great War. Seeking respect from Europe, China joined the Allied forces and declared war on Germany in 1916. Near that time, the avaricious country of Japan was attempting to expand their land. Although also with the Allied forces, Japan had plans to take over parts of China and the U.S. After the Central Powers were defeated a few years later, the Treaty of Versailles was issued. Much to China's dismay, they received nothing. Japan, however, was rewarded with rights to all of Germany's military bases in China. This became known as the Shandong Problem and left China as one of the weakest countries in the world. The nationalist government did little to respond to the unreasonable treaty. This sparked outrage in several large Chinese cities, primarily Beijing. Students who were upset by the government's lack of pride and nationalism led a violent protest outside of the Gate of Heavenly Peace. Called the May 4th Massacre at the time, is today more commonly referred to as the May 4th Movement. The protesters attacked foreign relations officials and burned buildings. 32 students were arrested. The May 4th Movement stands as a highly significant event in Chinese history. The protest was led by intellectually sound students who had a purpose. They wanted to encourage a stronger national bond and banish the causes of China's weakness. This display of national pride would change modern China forever. The May 4th movement influenced several leaders into the thought of equality throughout the country, most notably Mao Zedong. Mao was a library assistant at the University of Beijing before he moved back to his hometown of Shaoshan to found the Communist Party in 1921. The Communist Party had a goal to provide equality through every aspect of human life, such as land, income, education, and food. The only thing standing in between communists and a leading government was the Nationalist Party. Still weak from World War I, the Nationalists continued to be a force to be reckoned with. Although not the official leader, Sun Yat-sen was the main influential power of the party. He allied with the Communists in 1923 to defeat Chinese and Japanese warlords that ruled most of northern Japan. During these battles, Sun Yat-sen developed a terminal case of liver cancer and died in Beijing Hospital in 1925. With Yat-sen's death came one of the most violent and eccentric leaders in history. Chiang Kai-shek was born in extreme poverty but gained power through the military. He appointed himself the leader of the Nationalist Party and had one main objective: eliminate the Chinese Communist Party. Chiang was a very competitive individual, and he wanted everybody affiliated with communism dead or tortured. On a peaceful day in 1927, Chiang Kai-shek led his extremely powerful nationalist army through Shanghai in an attempt to purge every living communist in the city. He led his troops through government buildings and violently dealt with people he believed were members of Mao's regiment. Several officers were executed on the spot, but others were kept as prisoners of war. This tragic event would later become known as the Shanghai Massacre of 1927. The Nationalists continued their tyranny over China. Chiang closed all elections, and he was the one who dictated all laws and foreign policies. The higher class of China's social status soared under Chiang's rule, while peasants and serfs suffered greatly. While nationalists soared, Mao and his communists quietly began to recuperate and slowly rose to power once more. 4 years later, in 1934, Chiang learned that communists were becoming a threat again. Since he was a very paranoid person, he immediately took action. He ordered full-out attacks on all communist forces. However, Mao was quicker. He commanded his communist group, which was full of officials, troops, and civilians, in a march throughout much of China in order to escape nationalist attacks. The march was long, brutal, and seemingly never-ending. It went on for over a year, was 6,000 miles long, and over 70,000 people died. Mao told his men to not attack and continue to flee. However, another force was hindering Mao's leadership ability. This time, it was the Soviets. Otto Braun was an advisor that had been brought on to help with the rebellion against the nationalists. His war strategy was the polar opposite from Mao's. Braun believed the best way to fight off the nationalist forces was to full-out attack them. He manipulated several communists into thinking attacking was a better choice. Mao believed that they should go around China and convert people, then launch one huge attack on Chiang. The communists sided with Braun and led an attack against the nationalists. The nationalists utterly destroyed them, leaving over half the communist soldiers dead. After this disaster, Braun was dismissed, leaving Mao to lead the army. He continued to lead his troops around China, and by the time he returned, he had gathered 80,000 troops, which proved to be a formidable opponent for the nationalists. The two sides clashed for 2 years, while neither side appeared to be stronger than the other. Then Japan came into the picture. They ferociously invaded China's large cities and killed hundreds of thousands of people. This left each side with a difficult choice. They could either cooperate and fight off the Japanese together, or continue to fight. The two sides wisely chose to fight off Japanese forces together. This, however, did not stop Japan from destroying several parts of China and leaving it in ruins. This invasion is considered one of the most horrible atrocities to ever occur on the planet. Japan continued to control China until about 1945, when they surrendered with the end of World War II. Without any hesitation whatsoever, the two sides continued to clash. Mao's strategy of conversion had paid off. Nearly all of northern China and Soviet Union backed Mao, while just parts of southwestern China backed Chiang. Even with billions of dollars flowing in from the U.S., the nationalists could not keep up with the communists as they were whittled down by Mao's troops. In 1949, Mao officially declared China as his own, calling it the People's Republic of China. Driven to exile, Chiang and the nationalists fled to the island of Formosa, now called Taiwan, or the Republic of China. Today, Communist China continues to thrive and has grown to become one of the most potent economies in the world. Many predict it will pass the U.S.'s economy within the next 5 years. The Communist uprising shaped the world as we know it. It influenced the idea of communism, which has been adapted by other countries around the world. It changed China from being a weak country to a world power. This shows how a simple revolution can change the course of history forever.